Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Press Break podcast. I'm Chelsea Late, and this is, of course, Jamie and Tyler. We got Jamie back this week. She has returned from her travels. And, I mean, what else could we talk about today other than the WNBA Draft, which was last night when we were recording this, Monday night if you're watching on Wednesday. But it was wild. I mean, I think it was one of the drafts that has the potential to create players for years to come out of, the past few years. When you think about, expansion of roster spots and all of that jazz. But we're going to get into it a little bit here today. Each of us have kind of picked out a team that we think did really well in the draft. We've also picked out a player in the later rounds that we think might be able to make an impact on their team's roster once we get into that. The unfortunate part of the post-draft follow is that a lot of times a lot of these players won't actually make the roster, but we're in a unique situation this year where some of them might. Like, I think we're going to have a lot of second round picks at least that make rosters. And so it's an interesting topic to think about. And then you also think about the fact that once teams waive these players, they can also go and sign other players that were waived by other teams, et cetera, et cetera. So it all just kind of like ends up moving around. These players will move around quite a lot. But for now, we have the draft. And training camp starts in a few weeks, so we're going to get into that. So let's kick off by talking about the teams that we think won the draft. And by won the draft, we just kind of mean that the picks that they were not only good picks for their team, for the players that they currently have. We think that the players might be able to make the roster at the end, and not just make the roster, but be able to play significant minutes. And also players that we think these teams might be able to develop as the years go on. I also want to add that I think there's a little bit of incentive for teams to keep their rookies this year just because of the CBA and how they'll be able to be on those deals for 4 years. And so once they waive them, and if players are able to sign for new teams next year, they'll be on those new deals, right? So I do think they were very serious about drafting future prospects this year. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But let's get into it. Let's start with Jamie because, the people haven't heard your voice in a few weeks.
Probably tired of hearing mine.
Yeah, they're like, we're sick of these too. So, Jamie, who do you think won the draft?
Yeah, so first of all, great point on kind of the prioritization of players that have the potential to stick around. And it's honestly, to me, less about the cap space of the contracts, because the reporting that we're seeing is primarily that more than likely all of the rookie scale contracts will be bumped up in accordance with whatever the new CBA is. It's more to do, to me, with the fact that these are contracts that can be held for the next couple of years when almost the entire league is going to be free agents. And so a lot of the time you have this situation where maybe you go with a rookie because they have lower cap hit, or you want to develop them, but if they're fairly equal with someone in training camp who has that veteran experience, there's a lot of teams that would default to the vet if they have the contract that is still favorable to them because, they have the experience, because they know what they're going to, or they know that they at least have that ability. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case this year, because it means that you can secure that player for several more years if they're on even close to equal footing with another player. So a team that I think did incredible in this draft is, hear me out, not going to be a surprise. It's not about simply their first pick, but the Dallas Wings were so great in this draft. Like, to me, okay, if you take Paige Beckers out of the equation, they still had a tremendous draft for the picks that they had available to them. They picked extremely versatile players. They picked players that have skill sets that weren't really already present on their roster. They picked players that could diversify what they have available to build. And especially for a Dallas Wings organization that has not done that for several years, where it seemed like the list of priorities for them was like height and then several lines
and no other priority
else.
And no other priority.
To go in and to have this intentionality about it is so huge. And so aside from the fact that they already made so many great offseason moves in the players that they've signed, in the trades that they've made, they already have, half a dozen training camp contracts that are signed from players that absolutely have a chance to contribute. But for those training camp contracts, that doesn't mean that you necessarily are signing those players. And so they do have a good bit of cap space. They do have a handful of potential roster spots open. And obviously Paige Beckers is going to make it. Generally, you think that first rounders will usually make it. And so Isaiah James is someone who I think you would generally expect to make the opening day roster. But then beyond that, when you're looking at Madison Scott going 14th overall, when you get Aaronette Vonleh at 28 overall, like that's crazy to me, because I always forget just how tall she is, like until I would kind of walk next to her. Like she's every bit of 6'3" and like maybe a little bit more depending on the shoes, and she's got a crazy wingspan. And I think some of why that gets overlooked is she's had some struggles at times with rebounding, maybe hasn't rebounded quite as much as you'd anticipate for her size, but her touch around the rim is tremendous. I think that they're going to have really great development down there. You'd be playing with some terrific rebounders that I think she could learn from. I mean, you talk about if she could be out there and talking to Melissa Smith about being aggressive going after the ball, like that would be incredible. And then you've got JJ Quinterly as well. And so that's just someone who is always going to have the potential to contribute to a team because of her defensive acumen, because of just the athleticism, the quickness she has. So I think that there are so many great pickups. Like there's no one here where I looked at it and I said, ooh, I don't know if I would have taken them there. Like it's more of, wow, I can't believe you had the opportunity to take them there, especially with their last two picks in Aaronette Vonleh and JJ Quinterly. But Isaiah James and Madison Scott both, I think, have a lot of abilities that make them major pro prospects. And I just feel like, man, the Wings didn't have anywhere like specific they needed something. It was more, okay, let's get us some depth. And they got themselves some tremendous depth options. That's all the chatter I've been seeing is, whew, that camp is going to be crazy, and it's so true.
Yeah, that's so fair. And I mean, Paige Beckers alone, you kind of win the draft just because we know. I mean, yeah, it's Paige Beckers. But I think our commenters have called me like a Paige Beckers bias, whatever. And you know what?
I agree, yes.
You know what? Yeah, Tyler is number one on my haters list.
For sure.
So, yeah, but it's also like, I don't know, like you think about the fact that you draft someone like that who's so pro ready, who you immediately slot next to someone like Arike, Dejanay, Nalissa, and it's just like you can't help but think that Dallas is going to at least step up than they have in the past few years. And I get it's a new organization, new general manager, coach, whatever. So you're expecting kind of a lift anyway, but yeah, you add in these like, additional pieces. And one thing, we were on a GM press conference with Kurt Miller last week, and he was talking about the fact that like if you're at this draft, like you want Dallas to call your name because we have the spots, we have the time to develop you, we have the vision, like we're starting from scratch, and so everybody's coming on training camp like kind of even here. So yeah, I think they did well, and it was one of those moments where you're like, okay, like the mocks are always a little bit off, but I'm like, I can kind of see what they were doing here when you think about the progression of all of these draft picks. But anyway, let's move on to Tyler, because you have a different team that you think won the draft, or like did well in the draft. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think my favorite draft class from any team. I know it's gonna be really crazy. After Jamie picked the team that selected number 1, I'm going with the team that picked number 2. I mean, look, Dominique Malonga, if you're unfamiliar with her, goodness gracious, get familiar. And she's so young. I mean, obviously, like the rules for European talent, overseas talent, are just different from entering the draft and whatnot. So I think that because of that, there has been like it's been nothing but projection. What can she be? And understandably so, because I mean, genuinely speaking, and I don't feel like this is hyperbole. Like Dominique Malone could be the best player in the league, and like that's not hyperbole to me. Like that is like at her absolute best can be the best player in the world. And because of that, there's been a lot of projection, but not a whole lot of what she can contribute immediately. And like she's been playing against pros. Like she's been like she was like she's been around like adult women playing against them pretty much her like for a very long time now, for years now.
Not just anywhere, like in France. Like
Yes.
the French league is intense.
Yeah.
Marine Johannes plays, that's where Gabby Williams plays,
Yes.
that's where so many
Yes.
of them go to play.
Yes, absolutely. So like you're getting a player that is going to be, if nothing else, acclimated to playing pro basketball. And obviously the WNBA is the best league in the world, but there is a level of acclimation that you only get if you play overseas. So you have that. But that's not even the player that like puts this over the top for me, right? The fact that Seattle got Serena Sundell at the top of the third round makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, at all. And then you add Madison Connor, you add Jordan Hobbs, who are fantastic shooters around them. But those two picks alone, like just the ceiling of what Serena Sundell can be, who I think could absolutely end up being, Paige would be the best guard in this draft. And then if you told me it ended up being between her and Sonia as like the second best guard in this draft, would not be shocked at all. Like she has every intangible that you would want. She's a big guard, which is a kind of a theme across this draft class as a whole, is the size of the guard position.
Versatility. You never know exactly who's going to be on your roster going
absolutely.
forward.
And Serena Sundell, while she isn't like the craziest high volume scorer, the defense, the length, the playmaking, like,
and like let's also say she's not a crazy high volume scorer, and it's not for lack of capability.
Right.
There were absolutely times where you could see they were like, Serena, girl, we need it. We need it. And especially down the stretch with Ayoka out, she was able to like really kind of pull herself up and do more. But like she's just a pass first point guard, and that's what she wants to do.
Yeah.
But man, she has so much deeper of a bag that I think anyone realizes. And again, talking about height, like is legitimately 6'2", because every time we would play her and she would walk by, I'd just kind of stand there and I'd be like,
crazy.
Dang, that's real.
Crazy.
You're so, like, really that tall.
So like if she can, I mean, to your point, it's not about I agree that I think that all the skeleton of being a very, very, very good scorer is all there with Serena Sundell. So like you think of what you already have and then turn that into what can be. And the ceiling of that is, I think far and away, this draft class for Seattle has the highest ceiling, like potential ceiling of any class. Obviously we have to see how it plays out if they reach that and whatnot. But I mean, I feel like you're getting two players that are equally potential to be like genuinely very, very, very good players in the WNBA. But also, if you stick them on a WNBA court now, they're not going to look out of place. And that for Seattle specifically, when you think about some of these other top teams in this like in the lottery area and whatnot, Washington was full rebuild throughout this entire 2025 class. The Valkyries obviously just getting started. Dallas more in place than most, but still like trying to kind of figure that out. And like a Connecticut, right, who's also in full rebuild. Seattle is the pretty clear outlier in the talent that they still have on roster while adding these rookies. So being able to find rookies that are a great balance of what can be and what they are immediately is exactly what they were able to go and do. And for that, and to get Serena Sundell, who I thought, I was looking at her as a total like first round guard potential. Like I thought, honestly, where Haley Van Lith got selected, I was like, okay, this is probably Sundell. Because who's done more post-entry passes in her college career than Serena Sundell? Like, you've been playing with the Ayoka Lee the whole time. But to go and get that level of value in that third round is just absolutely insane. And so for the ceiling of Seattle's draft class, I'm rolling with them as having my favorite group of picks.
Yeah, like imagine you're doing a scouting report and it's like Nneka, Ezi Magbagor, and now Dominique.
Like what? Like, well, even if you think about the future, right? Like give like 3 years, right? Like just generally speaking, think about the potential defensively of like Serena Sundell, Jordan Horston, Ezi Magbagor, and Dominique Malonga all on the court at the same time.
Nika Mule too. Like Caitlin Clark has said she's one of the toughest defenders ever, and Seattle just has all of them.
We'll see if she's on that roster with Serena Sundell coming. But
Isn't she out this year?
She's out this season, so it's
Okay.
We're gonna take her.
I'm like, am I?
Yeah,
So it's
so
fine.
there you go. See, there's that UConn bias. Goodness. But no, like.
Also,
No, but,
like the
yeah,
side
there-
note
there's-
of Serena Sundell going to the same city as her brother.
Oh my
is
god, I
playing
was gonna
NFL.
Yeah,
I was like,
mention
that's
Holly
so
being
fire.
like, and your boyfriend got drafted so much later than
Yeah, that was
catch
wicked.
that on the draft on the thing.
Yeah,
I was like,
that was
her boyfriend catching.
with Sonya.
No, that
Yeah,
was
that was
that was
Sonya.
Sony. Yeah, that
That
was
was
Sonya.
Sonya.
I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, catching
Yeah.
strays. Anyways, yeah, that just like immediately when I knew they were gonna pick Dominique because why wouldn't you?
Mhm.
And then you get Serena, and I'm just thinking like, damn, like Seattle already has Skylar Diggins-Smith, who is, not, I don't think like in the last years of her career, like still.
No, she was fantastic last year.
Yeah,
She was
and
at
McGuire,
worst a
like,
top 5 point guard. Easily at worst. Actually, yeah.
I think McGuire is the same thing as Dominique, where she came into the league at 19 from Australia. So you think she's a lot older than she is, but she's really not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still, like, however long NECA stays. Then you have Jordan Horston, who's out this season with that injury. And then, then you bring in Dominique as another franchise kind of cornerstone. It's just like, and then you think about the draft next year, like what they might be able to do. And it's just like, damn, like Seattle's really like doing the chess pieces here. So yeah, I appreciated that. And I was like, ooh, the Ezzy, Malonga,
I can't wait. Those lineups are going to be
long-term moves for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I'm like, you don't trade away Jewel Lloyd and like for something that's not a long-term move like that. So like that was a good trade. Now that you have the actual like pick in there. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Going to my team that I think like won the draft in a way, and I honestly feel like it was hard. So I'm picking Golden State, and I feel like it was hard for them to lose the draft because you're starting from scratch. In the expansion draft, you could see that they very much prioritized European players, draft and stash players, stuff like that, and they do that again with their 5th pick. So they pick. I'm not gonna be able to say her name. I feel really bad. Like Joycette. We'll see if she's from Lithuania. Looks great. Don't know if she's coming this year. So you have that. You have, they have Carla Late, who no relation, but has the same last name as me. I stand. I'm gonna get the jersey because why not? And then you have like, a few of these other players who they drafted or in the expansion that it was just the teams had the rights to them, right? So they're getting these rights. They could come this year. They could not. They do that the same thing with their number 5 pick. And then somehow Cheyenne Sellers falls to the 17th pick in the draft when I thought she was definitely going top 10, if not, in that range. And she goes to Golden State where they have, she's going to be a part of building the team's identity. She has a good a shot as any to make that roster because there's no really like seniority or whatever. Like they have players who are on guaranteed contracts, of course, but you don't have this like vet kind of thing with the way Golden State has been making their moves. And then they go into the 3rd round and they draft Caitlin Chen, which I think is such a smart move. And again, we're going to get the UConn bias.
Here it comes. Way to go, Chelsea.
Oh no.
The speed in the allegations.
But like Caitlin Chen came in from Princeton to UConn for 1 year. And like the reason that Gino Auriemma says he went and got her is because they played Princeton and could just see so much like high IQ, could see how smart and like calm on the court and how talented she could be. And she's the kind of player that just kind of like puts her fingerprints on so many different parts of the game. And if you go back and watch some of these UConn games from the championship run, like Caitlin Chen was the reason that they were able to stay in some of these situations during tough moments where other teams were coming back and like potentially threatening to make it a close game. Caitlin Chen was the one, handling the ball when Paige Beckers was playing.
Very much like a stabilizing force.
Yeah, exactly. And so you think about that on Golden State. It's a new team. And I really just love the connection of her being the first Taiwanese American player in the league. And then you have Natalie Nakase, who's the first Japanese American coach on the team. And so, that's like a nice connection to have in the Bay Area. That's like this new WNBA community. And so I think like Caitlin Chen going there when she didn't even think she was going to be drafted, which is another just like fun story. They have these players. Somehow Cheyenne falls to 17. You get Caitlin Chen. You have all these draft and stash picks that you can bring in over the next few years as you continue to figure out the identity of this team. And then you pair those young, really promising players with Kate Martin, who's another young, promising player. We haven't even really gotten to see her in her full effect. You have Tip Hayes, great veteran. You have Monique Billings, who is finally, going to get a chance to be like a big option on a roster. And I just like have really liked all of these like moves that Golden State has made over the past like 6 months, where they're just kind of like, okay, we're giving ourselves options for the future, but we're also drafting these promising young players that are going to be able to build their own identity as we build the identity of this team. And I mean, obviously, we know that I have like an invested interest in expansion, as we know, with Toronto coming in, and so I've been really.
Mentioned it.
Where are you going with this? So I've actually just been paying attention to what they're doing and being like, okay, what's the long game here? Because Toronto and Portland are coming up, and they're going to be making all of these decisions quite soon. So yeah, I think Golden State. I mean, not that we're saying they're going to be competitive this year.
Well, I don't think they want to be competitive. They shouldn't want to be competitive.
Then you go next year, and you have AZ, you have Flage, you have all of these players that are going to go next year, and I'm like, okay, that's when you see your.
Honestly, I feel like to me, it's not saying they're going to be competing for a title, but they're not conceding that they're not going to be competitive point blank. Period. Like they're not saying, well, we're going to prioritize getting these 2 good players, and then everything is going to be about building around them in the future. Like they're still putting together a team that it can function right now, and they're still prioritizing like a specific team identity, which is cerebral players, defensive players. Like that is so obvious, and I think to have that coming from day one is what sets you up really well long term. You might need time to build up your ideal roster for the situation, but you're not just saying, oh, well, the first couple of years, no one's expecting anything of us, whatever. Like they're still making some really, really great moves that are also forward thinking while also being something that can be successful in the short term.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting with the, like, I pulled up the roster. Like, so I'm trying to think, like, they don't really have true point guards until this draft.
Yeah, until the draft.
They have a lot of combo stuff. So, because I was trying to think, I was like, okay, like, what are the chances like Caitlin Chen like being able to go in and make the roster? It's honestly a pretty like decent chance just from a role perspective of like not many of these players. When like I'm just generally kind of looking up and down the roster, like there's more combo 2-3s I feel like than anything. Honestly, like even I mean, Veronica Burton would be is someone that is capable of bringing the ball up. I mean, like from anybody else, like from like that are like
Julie Von Lowe's a point guard, but beyond that, like, and she's a training camp contract. So beyond that, like again, you have so much open space. You don't have someone who like is already slotted into it. Yeah,
there's a lot of forwards.
What we were talking about before, where you get these picks, you get them on their rookie contract now on the same price for however many years. Yeah, I'm going to invest in, developing Caitlin Chen now, because obviously that she has a reputation. She's an extremely smart player, extremely well coachable. All of this stuff that's going to mold into her being a great future player. Why not,
And the same with Cheyenne. I think my favorite part about the Cheyenne pick specifically is that she's 6'2". So, like, she has guard skills and perimeter skills, but, like, whatever you kind of need her to be as you figure out what this franchise is going to be, she can more than likely slot into that role. Like, whether
it's like the same thing we were saying about Sundell, where, like,
exactly.
she has shown a lot, but also she has the ability to do things that we haven't even really seen a whole lot of, just depending on what's needed.
Yeah, I don't know how my only guess for, like, as to why she dropped so far is obviously there have been, like, injuries with Sellers. That's the only thing I could even really think of, because outside of that, like the flexibility alone and the versatility feels enough to have been a first round pick to me. But shout out to them.
She was kind of slotted in that 8-ish whatever space, but now she gets to go to Golden State where everything's shiny and new, and all there for her, and she has a good chance of being there for a long time.
Absolutely.
So if I'm her, I'm just like, you know what? Cool. Let's go to San Francisco.
It was always about fit over pig.
Exactly. Moving in, we have talked about players, but I think, on this conversation of players from later rounds that could
Mhm.
possibly make an impact on these teams. We do have like we each kind of thought of some players who we think traditionally may not have made a roster in recent years, but with all of the factors I won't repeat them, but
Mhm.
all the factors we've been talking about might make a roster. And I mean, let's just get mine over with first because we know where I'm going with this. There was one player that was drafted, and if you go look at where all the hometowns of all of these players are, you know who I'm picking. Von Ijum, Canada.
Mm.
No, but she
Mm.
is a
She's
great
very good. She's
very
very good. Yeah.
she West Coast player or West Coast Conference Player of the Year 2 years in a row, West Coast Defensive Player of the Year 2 years in a row, last year's Mid-Major Player of the Year, has been playing in the Canada basketball system as long as I can remember, has played on many levels on that front, has been to Olympic camps, has been to World Cups, has been to AmeriCup. She won bronze at the AmeriCup last time. Has so much experience playing with these older players in the system. Her brother's also in the Canada basketball system, so like, you know, yeah.
Let's go, Melvin, Cyclone great.
Yep, exactly. And so
This is ridiculous.
the Canada Iowa State
This is
connection,
ridiculous.
we got it. But
Hoping
yeah,
for one more with Yvonne, but she had a great career. I
Yeah.
hope for her.
we got Bridget, we're good. But yeah, thinking about like her fit on the Fever, I mean, the Fever isn't really a team that has much space in terms of who they're going to be able to pick. But I do think if they don't decide to go with her on the opening day roster, that any team who is looking for that defensive minded player, that player with a lot of experience, who's used to playing with veteran players, who has that international mindset, who has played on international stages, she could be a good pickup in that kind of like waiver round of, signings. And, based on how the draft went, maybe some picks don't work out for some of these teams that have space, you end up picking her up. I mean, again, depending with how Golden State's roster goes, she has experience playing with Letitia Amahir, who's on the Golden State roster. So like that's a really great one. I could see her fitting into there. You have teams like Connecticut that might be able to pick her up. And so she's just like, I think she kind of slipped a bit just because obviously there were so many high names on this draft that
Mhm.
it's hard to explain why someone falls like that. But at the same time, I do think that she has a lot of international experience, and she will be someone who will be in that Canada basketball system for years to come. So she will be having that experience playing with these top tier
Mhm.
players as she continues to play in Olympics and World Cups and et cetera, et cetera. So I think she's someone that could end up finding a place somewhere, hopefully, if not this year, then next year. But I'm excited to see where she hopefully ends
Would
up.
also be, I think, a really good mercenary where, like, when you start
Mhm.
signing people to short-term contracts where you need people who have the capability to play different roles, to step in and still be a really good team player. Like, I feel like Yvonne would be such a perfect candidate for that, too.
Yeah, exactly. So
Has a
that
great
was my pick.
reputation.
Yeah, great reputation. And I mean, I think all of those Canada players, especially because they've all, most of them have played in the NCAA circuit. So they kind of have that. They play in Europe. If she ends up going overseas somewhere and getting that experience, they play in like the FIBA kind of world. So it's like these players that dip their toes in a lot of different styles of basketball. And I think this trend of like Europeans coming over, we're seeing it in men's and women's basketball where these European players are coming over and they're so versatile when it comes to being able to play all 5 positions, just because of the fact that European basketball tries to teach you all of those skills. So I feel like we're seeing this surgence, maybe even resurgence of like people who play overseas or from overseas being able to come in and like really make an impact on the WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
agree.
anyway. So we started with Jamie last time. Let's go to Tyler. Who's your later round player that you think
Ooh.
is able to
Okay. Yeah, well, there's one that a quick mention is Harmony Turner, who
Oh,
I mean, come on now. Look, if I'm a mid-major scoring guard, not many better places to go be coached than with Becky Hammond. When it comes to being appreciated, when it comes to being given the opportunity, especially with what the Aces lost in free agency, like you're not having there's no Kate Martin, there's no Tiffany Hayes. So like I'm intrigued just by the potential of her. But I just love seeing like Ivies get drafted, honestly. So like shout out to Harmony. But the I think my favorite like pick when it comes to being paired with vets, like in that mindset of like, okay, who can you learn from? Michaela Timpson from Florida State going to Indiana. Like I love the idea of her under the tutelage of Natasha Howard and DeWanna Bonner. You want to talk about like kind of the archetype of big forward, long, but can do a whole lot of different things. We've seen like Indiana. There's an argument that they won free agency based on being able to fit this archetype into this team by adding DB and Natasha Howard. You now go and get a rookie that can. It is that same archetype of player that can go and kind of be, in my eyes, the potential and like the peak of her is eventually slotting into the positions that will eventually be left by DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard. So you get this year, maybe even two, of like just being able to play spot minutes, but just learn and increase your shot range. I mean, she's already taking threes in college, so that's not like a foreign thing to her. But just getting the volume up, the percentage up in that. But the ability to both be a defensive big that can kind of guard all over and still kind of stretch the floor while next to Aaliyah Boston, while also being able to run the floor with Caitlin Clark. Like, again, this is the exact archetype of essentially power forward that you want in this Indiana Fever system. With the talent that you have with your 2-star young players. So I love this pick. Again, I don't know how immediate the impact will be because of who else they brought in. But if you told me in like 3-4 years that Timpson is the starter alongside Aaliyah Boston in the post, I would not be shocked in the slightest at all. And it starts now with what she can learn from these free agent forwards that they brought in. So I'm very intrigued by this.
Doesn't she have like a 6'9" wingspan?
I believe it. Like I don't know. It's insane.
I heard someone last night say she had something like a 6'7" or 6'9".
I would fully believe it without having it pulled up.
She can look it up, but
I fully believe
that. Yeah, I saw her, and obviously the week before the draft, we're talking about things like steals and who could go and who isn't projected and whatever. And like Michaela Timpson was up there for me in terms of like players that people weren't talking about enough, quite honestly. And like
6'10".
Goodness gracious!
I knew
come on
like that.
So you get to go and learn like with the capabilities of that, like learning with again, because like you think about like the archetype of that player, right? Of like, because like yes, like Stewie is a long forward that does it, but that's more like I feel like Stewie is more like guard centered, like with her skill set, whereas DB and Natasha Howard are more forward centered, if that makes sense. But also it's they're very accustomed to being that second, third, fourth option, where Stewie is the number one option, and that's where Timpson, to me, in my head, in the very long term, can potentially fit in with this Fever roster, is being that third or fourth option and doing it at a very, very, very high level, which is what a championship team needs, is that third and fourth option being able to do it at the incredible level that I think she has the potential
Not a ton of opportunities, but super efficient.
Exactly. And then holding it down the defensive end, the effort plays. Like, think about what has made DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard so damn good and so like valued in this league. Yeah. It's those things as again, you're never like, you can be on any given night, like DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard can pop off and be your best player. But in a general like pecking order, they're normally second through fourth. And that's where I feel like she can fit in and learn from.
If you want to really oversimplify, part of what has made both of them really good is that they also are like very long players too.
Exactly. No, I'm saying like it is insane. Like the archetype of player that you needed to put next to, in my opinion, like that fit perfectly next to Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. Like if I could have picked any players from across the league, it was DB and Natasha Howard. Yeah. And then you go and get rookie DB and Natasha Howard, and you just slot her into this. Like it'll take time and it won't be immediate, but I'm very intrigued about the long-term prospect of this.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, with everybody being free agents next year, I feel like it's so smart for these teams to be like, hey, this is the kind of player we want next to our franchise whoever, and then let's go out and get that player, but also let's go out and get someone who could turn into that player.
For
So when
sure.
that player moves on, we can
Mhm.
go back to this player and be like, "Hey, like, you're gonna be like,
Exactly.
who better to learn from than the blueprint of what you
Yep.
want them to turn into," right? So,
Mhm.
I feel like the WNBA GMs are really playing chess this year, which they need to be because of all of the outside stuff going
Yeah.
on. But
Yeah.
they've kinda stepped up to the plate, and I've been very impressed. Jamie, what do you think about players and who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going pretty off the beaten path here. I'm going outside of the draft. Tamara Poindexter is
Oklahoma's
an
own.
unreal player, man. Tamara, I mean, look, I obviously watched her a whole lot because she was in the Big 12 this year with Kansas
Mm.
State. As soon as I picked her up, I knew that she was going to be such a massive addition for them coming over after 3 really successful years at Tulsa, extremely well decorated. But the way that she stepped her game up at Kansas State, just based on the situation she was in, what was around her, what they were asking of her, was incredible. Her previous highest 3-point percentage in a season was just over 32%. She stepped that up to 40% this year, and that's not for having significantly fewer attempts either. Pretty much right on the average, or actually a little bit above her average for her career. Was shooting over 6 3-pointers per game and shot right on 40%. And then beyond that, she's never had a season shooting below 50% from the two. She's got, I think, really great strength, really great athleticism. I think that she didn't take nearly as many twos this year, again, because of what her role was on the team, where, okay, when Aoka Lee's in there, obviously you're not going to be looking in quite as much to her. And eventually they just decided, all right, Tamara, you're shooting so well, you're going to be sort of our safety release, or our pressure release, our safety valve. And so she started having a lot of really great spot up 3-point looks. But she has the ability to get to the rim extremely, extremely well. She would do it here and there, just not quite as much as at Tulsa, which, you know, obviously different situation. But man, I suppose I've said all that, and that's I haven't even said it's Mercury that picked her up as a free agent because they didn't have a pick. And so I think this is a player that, if you were the Mercury and you had like a 3rd round pick, I really think they would have considered picking her up at that point because, again, we keep talking about the needs of these teams, and the Mercury have, I mean, gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 training camp contracts, guys. They have 6 players that they know are going to be signed, and then they have just a whole bunch of question marks. And so when that's your situation, you say, all right, let's see what we might be able to get here as far as a versatile player, a player with a high ceiling. And so when you have that spot where they didn't have any other picks, and so they currently have Kalani Brown under contract for next year, which great move for them. Big win to have her under contract. Beyond that, you don't have anyone else who you're guaranteed to have depending on who they end up signing. And so they have reserved rights for people depending on who they end up signing for the opening day or for the first game, for all that, you know, coming out of training camp. But you have your person so far that you've signed. I wouldn't be surprised if they're signing a couple other training camp contracts for undrafted players. But I mean, again, you're talking about if she's on a level playing field with anyone else in that training camp, you absolutely give her a shot to see what she can do as a pro, because if you can secure someone who has potential for several years right now, you do it. And I think that Tamara Poindexter absolutely is someone who could contribute, even if it's, you know, a handful of minutes to start from the very beginning, and especially long term.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to be seeing in the next few days a couple of these teams pick up, you know, the undrafted players. I mean, of course, we have the story of last year, Jalen
Sherrod.
Yes.
Yep. There we go. I was going to say Brown. I was like, that's not right. But yeah, she was undrafted, went to Liberty training camp, got cut, was signed later in the season, ended up staying for the whole season, WNBA champion as a rookie. Like, that is the kind of story you want for most undrafted players.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just what like the fact that we're now in the WNBA season, like I guess officially, training camp doesn't start for a few weeks, but these players are going to start going. We'll have more signings as the week goes on. I think by the end of next week or the week after, training camp will like officially start. I
Yeah.
don't have a calendar in front of me, but but yeah, any other like big things from draft night that kind of off or
Beyond that, I watched the Euro League Championship, and that was a blast. And so I just am continuously so excited for the players that we're going to see coming back over. I mean, Natasha Howard looked incredible. I mean, obviously our girl VC has been having some solid success for Mercy, and like, I don't know. I'm having a good time watching some of this international ball, seeing players get ready to come over and really succeed. I mean,
yeah.
Ayayi, man, let me tell you, like, oh my God, if someone doesn't get her to come over this year for the W season, it won't be for lack of trying. Like, that is a major, major W prospect in the making. Like, I don't know, man, y'all gotta be like, it's impossible to follow everything, but the EuroLeague has some crazy, like, under the radar talent right now, and especially as we keep saying, and we will for the next year or two, the way that contracts are going to shake out, the way things are going to be with how many free agents there are, there's going to be some people that kind of pop up out of nowhere that can be major contributors, and whew, if that's not one that's like in the back of my mind is like high potential, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm so excited because this EuroLeague season has been crazy. So there's going to be a whole lot coming over from, I mean, the players obviously that we've seen here before, in addition to the ones that haven't, because definitely a lot more parity coming up over there in addition to, here domestically.
Yeah. Well, domestically for some of us. As I am not domestic in the United States, and I ain't gonna claim that. So, anyways, yeah, and I think about Marine coming back to the New York Liberty too, like that. I feel like people who just got into the
real MJ
last year, they don't know what's coming. And she is coming onto this Liberty team that has Natasha Cloud, Leonie Fibish last year, who, I mean, I'm excited for year 2 if that's what we got in year 1. And who will probably play a lot of a starting role now that Benajelani Hamilton is out for most of the season. So, yeah, just the European talent is coming. It makes me happy. But yeah, I mean, Tyler, any other basketball thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Let me real quick. I just want everyone to know, as someone who is so incredibly fashion forward like myself, obviously, Kiki Iriafen ate everyone up on that orange carpet.
It's true.
And I have no other analysis past that because that's all I got. But I just needed that to be known. We were talking about it before the show.
It's true.
Like everyone,
really,
like there was some solid fits out there, but
really
Kiki, A1, no
doubt.
Every
picture I've seen of Kiki, I don't know if y'all have ever watched any of those like episodes of TV where the joke is that the person can't take a bad picture and they're like sneezing.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's Kiki. You take a picture of that woman and she's just glowing. Like every angle, she doesn't have a bad angle. She doesn't have a bad side. Like I'm just like, and then you put her in this like gold, beautiful dress at the shoulder. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, so
I'll also say she's like that in person too, like not obviously dressed up in the dress, but like the first time I saw Kiki in person, I was like, that's real.
Yeah.
That's just real. That's just how you look in real life. That's crazy. Good for you.
Failed me, but did well for her because geez.
But yeah, I mean, that was talking fashion with Tyler. That was no, just a one time only. One time segment. One time only.
And one thing about Kiki too is that she was telling Ricky on the carpet last night that she really wants to like do like runway and model, and I love this like new surge of these WNBA players being able to like be in those spaces as well and be so like multi-dimensional in their work and the fact that they can. It was funny, I was posting some of them on Instagram, and my mom, who is getting more into basketball now, but she replied to me and she's like, who are these people? And I was like, Mom, they're the WNBA players. She was like, "These are basketball players." I'm like, "Yes, they clean up nice."
Well,
So
if
yeah,
there's a WNBA media runway, send the invite to Norman,
yeah,
Oklahoma.
Tyler front row.
I'll be there. No, I'll walk.
Oh yeah, for sure.
WNBA media runway, I'll walk.
Yeah, you got it.
You know.
Yeah. So, anyways, we are going to call it unless
wrap it up. Yeah,
wrap it up here.
we're talking about me on a runway. It's time to go.
It's time to go. Yeah. I mean, we have kind of talked about next week going into the transfer portal because we'll be coming into the deadline of when players need to declare for or enter it or whatever. The deadline's April 22nd, I believe. So we'll be getting close to that next week. So we'll dive into the transfer portal, who's in it, who is committed, players who still haven't committed, who we want to commit to certain places. It's been spicy. I still don't know what Flage's doing. I mean, I know she's on tour, but like I don't think she's really said yes or no. Anyways. So yeah, that's next week. Come back for the transfer portal. And until then, catch us on social media, catch Her Hoop Stats, who was at the draft. We're going to be doing some preseason analysis and all of that fun stuff. So catch us there. And yeah, have a great week.
There you go.